Good evening, everyone. My name is James Jones, and I am the founder of the Reinvention Center, a nonprofit located in Oxon Hill, Maryland. Tonight, along with my co-hosts, Lisa Riley and Maurice Clifton, we are hosting the Growth Hour. And today we're doing something that's unique and kind of special. We have a gentleman, Mr. Carlos Parks, who is an actual motivational speaker, among other things. And he wanted to actually kind of felicitate the meeting today because he has some things that he wanted to touch on and speak on. So we're going to allow him to do that today. Before we do that, though, I would like to update everyone on the progress of the things that we're doing for Mr. Sanders and among other individuals. We have um, several individuals that we are fighting for, different organizations on here fighting for different people. I ask that if you're watching that you support all. We have Miranda up there with Injustice with Miranda. She has a daughter, Cheyenne, that's incarcerated. You can go on my Facebook page or Injustice with Miranda's Facebook page, and you can see the GoFundMe that she has for her daughter, as well as petitions and everything. I ask that everyone support her. Miss Sandy Freeze, she's with Factually Innocent. And she's the founder and one of the great administrators of that organization. She also assists individuals in regaining their freedom amongst advocating for what's right. Again, you can go on her page and contact her. We already, for the ones that don't know, we do have Maurice Clifton with Sail with Sippy and Lisa Riley with Breaking Silence. We kind of work in conjunction, us three. Maurice Clifton and Lisa Riley. Again, we have several other. If I'm not mentioning, we have Miss Connie on here. She's a private investigator from Colorado that assists different people with investigative needs. Again, if you're watching and you happen to need any investigative needs, please reach out to me and I can get you in contact with her. If you have anything or any agenda that you would like for us to push or assist in, reach out to me. Again, the organization I can be reached at is the Reinvention Center. And you can Google it and you can contact me via it. It's thereinventioncenter.org. If not, you have the page, the Reinvention Center Facebook page, as well as my Facebook page, James Jones. You can contact me any way you need to contact me. Update on Mr. Quentin Sanders. We're still chugging forward with this gentleman. We are about to start selling t-shirts for the gentleman, so we would like everyone's support by purchasing one. We are also going to hold a raffle, or a couple of raffles to be exact. One for for each gender, for females or male, don't matter. We would like to raffle off a couple bundles of hair, body wave or deep wave hair. If you are within 50 miles of the location, we may, not promising, be able to get your hair done for you. We have to speak with the people that does it. For men, we are also raffling off a $100 gift card to where you can go purchase whatever you would like to purchase. We try not to leave anyone out. Eventually we would like to get to the parents, the younger parents. I'm not going to say older, the younger parents. We're trying to get to a point where we're raffling off a hygiene basket, basically for household products, or a household basket, I would say, full of different household products in order to assist throughout this pandemic. Eventually, in the near future, we will give you a link that you can go to a page and you can actually either sign up for the rally or participate in the rally or buy a t-shirt and all that. We definitely need your support at this point. We definitely can't do it without you. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce Mr. Carlos Parks and allow him to give you more information about him and the topics that he would like to speak on. The topics he would like to speak up. The topic he would like to speak on is Miranda Rights and public defenders. Before we get to that, please forgive me. I was supposed to give one more update, which is we have some wristbands that's coming, and we will be also having those up for sale as well. So, we have a lot of things that we're working toward to try to generate funds to assist Mr. Quentin Sanders in his flight. Again, we can't do it without you. We can't do it without you. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to Mr. Parks. How you doing, Mr. Parks?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity, James. Hello to everybody. Like he said, my name is Carlos Parks. I'm from a small town in North Carolina called Goldsboro. Anybody like I know we have Mississippi's in Mississippi, of course. Lisa, I believe you're in Mississippi as well. Anybody? No?
Ohio.
Okay, all right. So we're everywhere. I don't really know about the individuals who I know Miranda represents her daughter. I don't know anything about that case. Like I'm new to the group. I just found out that James was doing this. He gave me an opportunity to speak on the topic. Topic I chose was something that was dear to me, Miranda rights and public defenders, because I was not only because I had a situation with Miranda, and I had a situation with my public defender, and I'm an avid watcher of the Next 48. I don't know if you guys watched that, but and I just watched the Miranda situations there, and I feel like that's some why are we not being more diligent with teaching our youth not to speak to officers without the presence of an attorney. And I don't know why we don't do. I mean, especially with so many coerced testimonies, officers will blatantly lie. You know, being that we've gone through the system and we've experienced things that most laymen haven't experienced, we have a mission, like myself and James and Sippy and whoever else on here is actually has actually been behind those walls. We have a mission to shed a light on certain injustices for the people who are still going through those things. Like, so a lot of guys come home and they forget about the people they left behind. That's not something that I shared this with these brothers, because I cannot forget the people I left behind. Everything we do to try to shed light on injustices. And I think one of the greatest ones starts as soon as they're picked up, as soon as they are in police custody. And that's the violation of the Miranda rights, the way they trick individuals um, into talking when they know it would not behoove them to speak. It's in their best interest to wait for an attorney, but our law enforcement, our detectives, they coerce these individuals to speaking without an attorney, which actually harms them, which puts them in a position uh, uh, to be railroaded. A lot of times, if you would just keep your mouth shut, wait for someone who was trained in not to say public defenders are always on your side, but they have sense enough to tell you not to speak on certain things. And you have that confidence that you share with an attorney. I just wish we would do a better job in you know making these individuals aware. That's not something that I was aware of the first time that I was interrogated, and I didn't know that police can lie to you. Brief a quick story. The first time I was interrogated by police, it was for shooting out of a vehicle, but it was a BB gun. So there were four of us in the vehicle. They got all four of us. We were young. We were in high school. They separated us, and they told everybody that those guys are putting it on you. You know, and I was the only one who didn't say anything. But maybe that's because I was the one who shot the BB gun. So all my friends told on me early on. So I was 17 years old the first time, but they were like, they told us that it's the police can lie to you during an interrogation, but you can't lie to them. It's funny, but that's how it is. And I thought this would be a good topic, um, because I'm pretty sure Sippy has his own story dealing with Miranda rights. James will have his story. Anybody else who's on here who's experienced it, um, you know, I don't want to hog up the time. Is there anybody else who has a story dealing with Miranda, or who has an opinion?
Can I ask you a question? I'm so sorry to just jump in, but I just have a question.
Okay.
When you, because you started out saying about when you're a teenager.
17, yeah, right before I
Okay.
turned 18, yeah.
That's perfect, because really that's my question. Going back to Quentin Sanders, he was 17 years old, but he's in Tennessee. So does this apply? Is this different for each state? Is what my question is, because being at 17 years old, they charged him and did not let his family talk to him at all.
Well, I mean, no, that's a constitutional right. So that's a violation. Your parents are supposed to be there if you're under 18. And unless, I mean, I don't even think you can waive that right as a juvenile. Your parents are supposed to be there if you're under 18. Like I don't know about that case. Like I say, I'm not familiar with the cases that are being discussed. I've heard that name spoken a couple of times, Quentin Sanders. I'm not familiar with the case. I didn't know he had a Miranda situation, but
well, I'm not sure. I'm just wondering, as you talk, I'm wondering, is it different from state to state? I guess is my question.
Miranda rights are universal. Am I correct in saying that, Maurice? Miranda rights are that's
universal law.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so that's
It's the
no
same thing for it's the same law for every jurisdiction. You know, that's why you hear the same thing said, regardless of what show you're watching or whatever experience you have, because it applies to everything around every jurisdiction. There is no difference, no different in Alabama than it is Florida or vice versa, or so forth and so forth. So yes, to answer your question, that Miranda right applies to every jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to speak on something. You mentioned.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. And then after you, Ms. Freeze wanted to ask a question. But go ahead, Miranda.
Oh, I apologize.
No
I'm
problem.
so sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You mentioned how we don't let our children know to exercise their right. In my daughter's situation, I asked her, why didn't you just not say anything and wait for an attorney? And she said, Mom, because I had nothing to hide. I was telling the truth.
And that's the problem. We need to tell our children, I don't care what the situation is. You absolutely, under no circumstances, speak to an officer of the law without the presence of an attorney. I don't care if you're being accused. They can flim flam them and tell them, oh no, we're not charging you with anything. We just want to hear your version of it or yours. No, see, officers have the right. They are protected by law. They can lie. They can lie during interrogation. They might call it a different name. They call it something else, but they're protected. But you on the other hand, that's a violation of what is it? That's perjury. If you lie to an officer, you just perjured yourself. So why talk to them? Period. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. And I learned during my federal situation. So let me give you a brief. This is why Miranda is so dear to me. I was actually incarcerated in the state of North Carolina. I had 15 months. While I was doing the 15 months, I was out lifting weights one day, and they called me to this building. I go to the building, and there are two white young guys in there. I'm like, so as soon as I go in there, I'm like, they gotta be federal agents. They was like my age. I was like 23, 24. And they was like, hey, Carlos, hey man, sit down. We want to talk to you. So I don't know anything about the federal government. I know absolutely nothing about the feds. So at that time they let me know that some guys were telling, saying that I had sold them drugs or whatever. And it was like 3-4 years ago. Like, man, I haven't been there in ages. But I'm talking to them, mind you, they was like, well, hold up. Well, we got to read you your rights. You're not being arrested or anything. I'm already in custody. but we need to read you your rights. So they read me my rights, and they was like, hey, we got a waiver, man. Would you mind waiving your right to talk to us? We're not charge you with anything. I was like, well, no, I ain't waiving my rights. You know what I'm saying? Like, so what the states did, right? Because they have so many statements but that come about, and then the individuals say, well, I never made that statement, and I never waived my rights. So now it's your word against the officer's words. So what the officers have been given is a form, a waiver of rights form. So they carry that with them to, you know, to verify or to show that you waived your rights. So I didn't sign it. I wouldn't sign it. I said, no, I'm not signing a waiver of rights form. I'm not waiving my rights. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I do that? So I wasn't stupid, you know. But anyway, what happened was I tricked the officers. They had information. Oh, well, we're about to indict some guys, and we want you to help us. And, you know, some guys are going to tell on you, and you're looking at a life sentence. If you help us, you won't get that life sentence. I'm like, well, who y'all about to indict? Like, well, first you got to tell us if you're going to help. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I help. And they start telling me names, you know, and they tell me my best friend name, and these guys are still out. So I'm like, no, I don't know them. And I know they know this is my best friend. But long story short, you know, they were under the assumption that I was going to play ball. This is what federal agents call it. Are you going to play ball? I said, yeah, I'm going to play ball. So what they did was they wrote up statements and said I told them. So when I finally got indicted by the feds, I told my lawyer, I said, no, I never said anything. I don't even know these people. So what we had was called we had a hearing. I forgot the name of it. I'm far removed from the system, so I don't. At the time, I knew the name of it. We had a hearing. It was my word against their word, and they lied in court and said that they forgot to bring the waiver of rights form. But long story short, I won. The judge ruled in my favor. My word against the officers, but he didn't charge the officers with anything. He didn't charge the officers with anything. Because that's another thing. A lot of the reason why these officers aren't found guilty of things is because it will bring back every case they ever had touched. And the same thing with a prosecutor. I tried to get my prosecutor for prosecutorial misconduct, but you got to think they've sentenced hundreds of people with this prosecutor. They weren't about to find her guilty of prosecutorial misconduct and jeopardize all these convictions. So I was mad because my lawyer wouldn't bring it up. That's an issue about court-appointed attorneys. We'll talk about that later, you know. But long story short, I won. The hearing. I forgot what it's. Oh, my son just threw up all over me. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I won the hearing, but it made me, you know, I started studying more while I was in about Miranda Rights violations and how many times officers, it's the officer's word against an inmate or you know, a felon. Who are they gonna believe every time? So in a situation, they're gonna always take the officer's word over your word. That you don't have any credibility because you're a convicted felon, and they're officers of the law. They don't break laws. They don't do anything wrong. They uphold the law. So why not just teach our kids not to speak to them at all and make that a universal rule? Like, you never speak to an officer. You never speak to them, ever, 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 ever. I don't care if you didn't do anything, because what we were just talking about, the guy from Rikers who killed himself after being wrongfully convicted. They lied and said he did some things, but that's because he spoke to him. If he would have never spoke to him, it would have never got that far. And there's been countless other cases. Don't speak to them. Don't speak to them, like, period. Like, without an attorney present. But yeah. Anybody else want to add on? Maurice, James?
I think that a lot of time we miss it with the kids, to where when we don't tell our kids not to say anything, and I think the kids speak out of fear most of the time because they're so afraid. You know, they're telling them that they're gonna do this, and at first they try to tell them everything is all right. They're gonna play good cop, bad cop with them. Oh, everything is all right. You know, we just talked to your mom. We supposed to say, you know, just like Carlos just said, you know, they lied to them. Oh, we just spoke to your parents, and you know, they're gonna be here in a minute, you know. But what really happened? You know, and the child is so afraid to of anything, you know, so afraid of being there that they just start talking, you know,
Yeah.
and so and they lead them down, they lead them into what they want them to say. And once they lead them into what they want them to say, they give them to repeat it again and they record it. So it's almost like they coerce a confession out of them.
Yeah.
And so we never see the part where they led him up to it, and it's almost like, you know, like Mr. Harris said, it's a script. It's a script that they you know, that they do, that they have. They have for everybody. For every situation, they got a script that they lead everybody to. In my case, I was never read any Miranda. I was actually arrested in Arkansas by the IRS for tax evasion. He never read me my Miranda rights. I never had an extradition hearing, you know, a Rule 40 hearing, you know, or a Rule 20 hearing where I was supposed to go before a magistrate in the state of Arkansas. He put me in his personal car for a tax evasion and brought me back to Mississippi.
Wow.
The same day. When I get to Mississippi, it's not tax evasion, it's aiding and abetting the sale of 6.4 grams of cocaine. Then they tell me I'm a flight risk. I'm gonna have a hearing Friday, a bond hearing Friday. I'm a flight risk. First time I offend a flight risk, and they give me, you know, they hold me with no bond. You know, but until this day, you know, after serving 23 years, I've never had Miranda rights. And I thought that once I got convicted, they said that it was harmless error. That's the first thing they come back and say. So I'm, you know, I'm still trying to shed light on the prosecutorial misconduct on that one. You know, yeah. Go ahead, Jane.
Ms. Freeze, she had a comment. I wanted to give her. We have a list of people that wants to comment. So Ms. Freeze is the next one, and then we have Mr. Jones, and then we have Mr. Harmer. Go ahead, Ms. Freeze.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief. I'm a big research person. I thought it would be probably very appropriate to just give a very brief history of where the Miranda warning came from. As we all know, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand your rights? I have just read to you. With this in mind, do you wish to speak with me? The Miranda warning was placed into law in 1966 by the Supreme Court case Miranda versus Arizona, where 24-year-old Ernesto Miranda was arrested in 1963 after being accused of kidnapping, rape, and robbery of an 18-year-old woman. Later on, the victim and her cousin saw a car close by to where the kidnapping took place, and they said that the person in the car was suspicious. So the police officers tracked the license plate and went to a woman's house. Her name was Twyla Hoffman, whose boyfriend was Ernesto Miranda. He was arrested. The victim could not identify him in a lineup at all. But the police officer made Mr. Miranda think that she did. So after a 2-hour interrogation with no attorney present, he wrote out a confession. This is the only evidence the entire prosecution had against him. His attorney, so he was tried and convicted, given 20 to 30 years. His attorney, Alvin Moore, appealed to the Arizona Supreme Court 6 months later because he did not believe the coercion, the confession was voluntary. And he did not believe that under the Fifth Amendment rights, this person, Mr. Miranda, was not protected because he ended up having to witness against himself. So how can he have had any protection with no attorney present and without knowing his rights? He did not know his rights. There was no Miranda up until that point. So he was paroled in 1975, and a month later, he was stabbed to death in a Phoenix bar fight. The people that were questioned in that bar fight where he was killed were read their Miranda rights. So the ACLU got involved. John Flynn and John Frank appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Sixth Amendment, as we know, guarantees that a defendant has the right to an attorney. Until the Miranda warning came into existence, how many defendants were not aware that they had a right to an attorney? They weren't aware because they didn't have the knowledge, because it wasn't even available then. So how many written confessions have been coerced? Many have been. So how many individuals still don't understand their Miranda rights? There are several. They need to know where it came from. They need to know how it was brought about. They need to know their rights. And that's basically what I wanted to share this evening.
With that, I'm going to move on to, thank you for your comment. Definitely appreciate it. We're going to move on to Mr. Jones. Need to unmute yourself, Mr. Jones. There you go, sir. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. I know you guys can't see me. I'm always moving around, so I keep the video off. I want to say that this is always enlightening. This growth hour, Mr. Clifton, Miss Freeze, Miss Miranda, James, all you guys, man, this is crazy because it's so enlightening. So enlightening. I always have comments for after every speaker, but I don't want to monopolize the time. Mr. Parks, I'm a fan, bro. I'm a fan. You bring back an interesting perspective, or you bring forth an interesting perspective, one with passion that has me on board. You know, sometimes it just has me on board. It's too much to talk about. But I want to comment on what you were talking about the children being quiet. It's kind of goofy, or it's kind of tricky, because if we teach our children not to talk, it's almost like we're asking them or instructing them not to trust the police officers. I am with you. I am with you 100%, because I'd rather they err on the side of caution than to be duped, tricked, or misled. Continuing with the theme, I don't want to go into any explanations. Between myself and my two brothers, and it's a joke to me because I never recall Mr. Clifton ever being read my Miranda rights. But when I watch TV, if you don't get your rights read, boy, you get thrown out. And I'm saying I never remember anybody telling me I have my rights. Now, when I pick up my paperwork, and I haven't gotten in any kind of interaction or any kind of police trouble in 25 years, I think I do find forms or something like that there that said I had. But like Mr. Parks, I don't sign that. I didn't sign that A form or nothing like that there. But you know, just comments, things that you guys are talking about that makes me think. I'm not gonna say color, but it might be classes or financials, levels. You know, on television, Law and Order. If your father's a senator or he's a prominent businessman, you know, they definitely say my father's gonna send his attorney, don't talk. If they pulled over my daughter, they would trick, coerce, and I have taught her to respect authority. But you know, in these trying times, I'm teaching her to trust no one but your mom and your dad, you know, your aunts and your family. You know, trust no one. Call us, no matter what. Call somebody. Stop talking. Call somebody. And that's kind of crazy, you know. But it is what it is, man. I want her to survive. I want them to live. I don't want them to be duped. And as you told the story about how they just want to hear your side, I've seen that too, man. That's cute. That's funny. I'm always laughing, and I do believe in stupid stereotypes. I call them stupid because that's how I feel. That city folks sometimes, and people that are not from the city versus the suburbs, you can tell people from different experiences, different walks of life, certain things. A guy from the city, you may not be able to tell him that. You know, we just want to hear your story. You're not in no trouble, you know, and yet I can't leave, or I can't call my mom, or we just know. Nah, I'm not going to share anything with you, bro. I ain't got nothing to say. You know, you talk about first 48. That's crazy to me too. How we talk so much, you know, and I've learned, life has taught me, or maybe bad experiences or whatever, good experiences, bad experiences, that yeah, you want to keep it to your vest, keep it to, you know, hold it, stop running your mouth, you know. First thing we learn is if you eat good or bad, it's chew with your mouth closed. You don't tell nobody. You know, keep your mouth closed. If you eat, you chew with your mouth closed, man. You know, yeah, just food for thought. You guys, every speaker, this Miss Freeze, you know, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. I can't wait to run out and share that at work tomorrow. I'll be telling everything you just told me about the Miranda, the history of the 1966. So until then, they was just running wild. And again, Mr. Park, some of the things you said, I hadn't thought about it in the way that you presented. They lie all the time. I can't lie. If you lying, I'm lying. That's how I'm be sitting there talking to the police. If you lying, I'm lying. You know, we lie. You know, but as you pointed out, it's perjury, and they're going to use it against you. You know,
Yeah.
but y'all lying to me. You know, so just so many things. I do love this this time we share. Mr. Clifton, like I say, it's a joke because I tell everybody. I never remember ever anybody telling me, but if I went to court anywhere and told them, hey man, they ain't reading me my rights. Give me my keys. I'm ready to leave because they ain't read me my. That's how I work on TV. You know, you didn't read me my rights. They got to throw the case out. You know, those just little things I want to share, and I could talk all night. But thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for your comment. I wanted to interject this before I go to Mr. Harmer, that the Miranda right only has to be read if they're questioning you about your crimes. The police officer arrests you without trying to get or obtain a statement from you. They don't have to read you your rights. If they ask you one question, then they're supposed to read you their rights. If they don't do it and they ask you a question, they're honest about it, the statement or whatever your response is not supposed to be admissible. But I want you to understand that yeah, let me address. I forget who said it, but if you're an adult, I think it was Lisa asked that. If you're a juvenile, under no circumstances should the police be questioning a juvenile without a parent or a representative there. Um, as an adult, if they're not questioning you, then you don't have to they don't have to read you your Miranda rights because Miranda rights are based on statements that you make. Um, so that's what that is. There's a whole lot of stuff that I can go into as far as the statements, because under discovery, they're supposed to give you any statements that you made. That's one statement that you can get before going to trial. Other ones, they wait to 3 days before trial and give it to you under the Jinx Act or gigolo material, they call it Jinx or gigolo material. But if you make a statement, they're supposed to give that to you as soon as you get arrested and you file for discovery. So just keep those two facts in mind that if they're not questioning you, then they don't have to reach you your Miranda rights. All right, with that being said, I'm gonna go to Mr. Harmer. I need you to unmute yourself, Mr. Harmer.
Yeah,
How
hey
you doing?
guys. I wanted to quickly go back to what Carlos Parks was saying about how if something comes up with one of these officers or detectives or something like that, where they've been found to be, for lack of a better term, corrupt, that brings all the cases that they've ever touched back into question. And I want to know, how true is that? And because I believe that also. I've also heard that, and it makes the most sense to me. But just recently, I came in possession of a document that's nearly 300 pages long, and each page has 30 or more officers in the state of Florida who have been in trouble for one thing or another, be it evidence tampering, and these people been kicked off the force for it. You know how many names that is? I mean, dang, if all those people were connected to one case or another, and they've got, evidence tampering, they've got all types of stuff. Oh, this guy, got caught getting high, I mean, just crazy. The list goes on and on and on with these people. And I'm just wondering, when that type of evidence is brought to light, can you get back into court? Can you get back into court on that?
Without a doubt. But that's the thing. When that type of evidence is brought to light, I think James said there's a private investigator on this call. A lot of times, like, who can afford that? And then, like, we haven't gone into court-appointed attorneys yet, but that's a tool that they could use that they don't even try to use. Like, if an officer has a record of any type of anything that would bring into question their actions, yeah, you can get back in court on that. A lot of guys try to get back in court on something the officer did, officer misconduct or whatever, that goes to question their credibility. You know, this is a person who could have planted evidence on me. You know, they could, whatever reason. So it at the end of the day, it's on the courts to accept that newly discovered evidence. But that's what it is, newly discovered evidence that you didn't know ahead of time. For officers kicked off the force for you know, for comments or whatever, yeah, that's going to definitely affect anybody he's had a finger to in their prosecution. If he's testified against someone, he saw someone, he said he caught someone with drugs, everything comes into question that he did, which is why they are so hesitant when it comes to prosecuting officers, because it could erase a lot of convictions. But yeah, that's definitely means to get back in court.
Let me share this with you. Excuse me, let me interject. I apologize. I want to read two panelists comments. And the first one states, it says, we need to teach our children the law, not to be silent. But to be educated. You cannot be detained without Miranda rights being read. You
who said that?
Excuse me?
Who somebody said we need to teach our children the law?
Mr. Harold, he's holding his finger up to you right there, sir.
So I'm from Virginia. We can't graduate in high school unless we take a class called U.S. Constitution. But that still doesn't make you a lawyer. You see what I'm saying? So a lawyer is someone who is trained in it, Mr. Harold. Unless you're a trained attorney, you can't defend yourself against a officer. Like, just because you know the law, it's not the same.
I think that he's not saying. If you like to comment, Mr. Unmute yourself, Mr. Harold, and there you go. You're unmuted.
Yeah,
So, good evening, guys. This is really a great conversation.
All right.
So, no, not teach our children the law, but there are three things that we should teach our children absolutely. One is the Terry stop. Two is Miranda rights. And three is not so much the law. Well, the first two are the most important. Miranda rights.
Say the first one. Can you repeat that first one again?
The Terry stop. So the Terry stop is knowing your law as far as what an officer can do when you are pulled over.
Okay.
What he can ask you, the questions that you can answer. The Terry stop is the most important thing that all citizens should know, right? The Miranda rights is second. We need to teach our children the Miranda rights, not by law, but what he has the right to say and do once he turns 18 past that, or as a juvenile underneath, you know. It's imperative because, the third one, I'm sorry, was conspiracy. Yeah. We have to teach our children what conspiracy is. The reason why these three laws are so secretive is because it allows officers to maneuver the way that they can in order to uncover evidence. So that's why they keep these three laws so secretive against its citizens, so that it allows them to maneuver them. Because as soon as we know the law, if you get pulled over and you start checking that officer about a Terry stop, right, it enrages him. Why does it enrage him? Because now it stops his investigation. It stops him dead tracks as to what he was doing. Same thing with the Miranda. You know, the gentleman was correct. Yes, they can ask you all kinds of questions. Again, you have to know your rights as far as what they're asking you and why they're asking you. But they can ask you whatever they want to ask you, but they cannot detain you. And that's why you always ask an officer, are you detaining me? Because if he tells you no, then you have the right to walk away from him. If he tells you yes, you're being detained, then he has to read you those Miranda rights. So that's how we have to teach our children moving forward from there. Like they have to know that.
I think some of the things that we're teaching them already, how to interact with the police, is in tune with what you're saying, Mr. Harold. But I think that we need to go more in depth on what we're actually teaching them. Because again, if you're a juvenile, you should be teaching your child. It's not the law. So I understand what you're saying, Mr. Park, but it's not the law. It's basic things that they should know. If you're a juvenile and the police pull you, or you have any action with the police, your first thing that you should teach your child to say is, "Hey, I need my parents," or you know, I'll call my parents, or something to that effect. If you are an adult, you know, then you can ask, you know, what do you know? You can ask your questions. What am I under arrest, or are you, you know, am I being detained? And then you know what goes into the next thing. You know what to do from there. You know, so it's not basically the law because they're too young to understand the law. But we do teach them how to interact when we're being pulled over. We already teaching them that. So we should incorporate those two things. If anybody stop you, just like saying don't speak to a stranger. You can say, hey, when you talk to if a police officer pull you over or stops you, at that point you ask to speak to your parents if you're underage. If you're above age, then you have enough common sense to say, okay, well, why am I doing this, or why are you stopping me, or something like that there. So that's all he's saying. So we all on the same page. He's not saying the law. He's saying teaching basic things.
Right. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. I want to read another panelist. Were you finished, Mr. Arrow, or do you have something else you would
No,
like to say?
I'm good. Really, that's all I wanted to say. Just to further your point, my daughter just turned 16 and she's biracial, so I worry about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is like I tell her, I don't care if you have 15 cops on you. We'll deal with all that later. You pull over in a lighted area and you call me ASAP. And you have me on the phone. And as soon as the officer comes up to the window, sir, I'm a juvenile and I have my father on the phone now. And then we'll handle it from there. So that's how I teach my daughter.
So can you spell that Terry stop for me? Is it TARRY or
T-
Oh, it's
T-
T. Go ahead.
Wait, TERRYSTOP.
Okay.
The
Basically,
case is Terry versus Ohio, I believe.
right, that is it.
Okay.
I want to also add to the Terry stop that doesn't only include you driving the vehicle. You could be walking down the street and they stop you. And
Absolutely.
So that's considered a Terry stop. Anytime an officer stops you from or impedes your movement from wherever your progress, from wherever you're going, that is a Terry stop.
Yes.
At that point, you can ask them, as the gentleman said, am I being detained? If they tell you no, then you can walk off. If they
Okay.
tell you yes, then they're supposed to read you your Miranda rights, because at that point you're in custody to a degree. So a lot of us automatically think that when we get stopped, that we are in custody or we're being detained. And that's not
Right.
the case. That's why when you go to court and you say things, they say, well, hey, he wasn't in custody or we wasn't detaining him. So you have to clarify that from the beginning when you get stopped.
Because
What
they're not
type of
going to
stop
let
is
you
it?
know that. They are not going to let you know that. They are not going to let you know your rights. That is imperative to know. An officer is never going to let you know what your rights are. He's going to constantly make you feel like you're being detained, and he's constantly going to make you feel like you have to answer his questions.
All right. Thanks for the enlightenment. We have another panelist that gave a comment, her Miss Connie, and she's the private investigator that we spoke of out of Colorado. And she's saying that these are the things, those things are one of the first things I look into and try to find. When she's doing investigative work, she's trying to find the Miranda rights or anything associated with that, any type of statements or correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to ask her to unmute herself and allow her to explain it herself, because I don't want to misquote what she's saying or what her intentions are, because we went to two different things. Are you there, Miss Connie?
I am, yes. So, most of what I do is post-conviction case reviews. And when I'm going through the discovery, the police reports, everything, one of the first things I do is look for what rights were violated during the arrest, during the interrogation. And then I go look for any misconduct that might be available to any of any of the officers involved, any of the district attorneys, even the defense attorneys, especially when they didn't provide any kind of defense for the defendant. And I look for that, and witnesses that, a lot of officers take the stand during trials or whatever it may be. And if those disciplinary actions or any kind of misconduct that they have on file that goes towards the credibility of them has to be disclosed to the defendant. And if they don't disclose that information, it pretty much is a due process violation. It goes against their rights. So those are huge things. Any Brady material, Giglio material, I search and search and search to try and find anything that might, not have been disclosed. And one of my cases, I was able to find a officer who had performed a photo identification, and there was nobody that was pointed out, but later it was discovered that he was terminated because he was found to be under the influence of drugs while he was working. And that's huge, because you can present that and say, well, how do I know he wasn't under the influence when he, presented this photo lineup to this witness? And, especially in cases where a witness may identify the defendant in a photo lineup, absolutely that stuff is going to go in the favor later for the defendant. So those are some of the things that I think the courts are starting to recognize and are having to disclose that information even to the public if there's any kind of disciplinary or misconduct issues with officers. And I've found that some of the police departments that are actually hiding things are very, they don't want to hand over that information. So then it's just, it's obvious what's going on. So yeah, those are some of the biggest things that I look for in the cases I investigate.
That's called exculpatory evidence. Anything
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a lot of times they and if they're found to be withholding exculpatory evidence, which is evidence that the prosecutor knows about, they could go towards the defense of the defendant, or it might be useful to the defendant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the prosecutors, they withhold that all the time. Like
yeah.
You got to catch them, so that's one of the reasons that I tried to get my prosecutor for prosecutorial misconduct, because she was aware of some exculpatory evidence and she withheld it. And my attorney did not want to file I had a court-appointed attorney, which is, I think that's an excellent segue, James, into that, because I had a court-appointed attorney, and I want to talk about how that plays into convictions and that 97% conviction rate that my prosecutor had.
Whenever you're ready to go into that topic,
I think we might have touched on Miranda enough.
Okay. If anybody has any questions before we move on to the next phase of this meeting, which is public defenders. Okay, well, with that being let me read one more comment and then we'll go from there. Gentleman says, in my podcast, I have an attorney talk about how the prosecutor will withhold evidence until the night before trial. That's something that's prevalent. The laws are, in all actuality, the laws are in favor of that for the prosecutor. As I was saying, the Jinx and Gigolo material, depending on what district you are, because each district have what they have district practices or rules, but the laws, the Jinx law and the Gigolo material law is saying that they can give you the witness statements 3 days prior to your trial in West Virginia. I say West Virginia because that's where I went to trial at, and that's what they did. Now, that's unfavorable to a defendant because I had 36 witnesses testify against me. And how am I going to investigate all 36 people, read all of their statements? Jinx material includes grand jury testimonies every time or anytime they gave a statement to an agent, whether it be the ATF, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the FBI, the state police. So, anytime they give a statement, it's supposed to be recorded. You get that 3 days before trial. That's when they gave that to me. On the average, there was 3 to 4 statements per person that testified against me. So that means that I had 90 something statements to go through 3 days before I started my trial. And we were supposed to investigate these people, look for factual or unfactual errors in this stuff. So, again, the deck is stacked against you. Gentleman, Mr. Harold is actually putting different things on the chat. And I try to, so for the ones that's on here, please read the chat. But for the ones that's not on here, he has a podcast, and I'll have him tell you about it before we leave. And basically he's speaking on conspiracy, which I would love to be a part of that because I went to prison for conspiracy. With that being said, I want to move on to the public defenders. Let me say this before you go into your spiel, Mr. Parks. Everybody's experience is different. So by everybody's experience being different, there's going to be different opinions of the public defender, the views of the public defenders. If you want, I will express mine first.
Mine is not on opinion. Mine is on the fact. And I just wanted to talk about the fact that public defenders are paid by the government, as are the prosecutor. And I want to talk about the discrepancy in how much public defenders are given to defend you, as opposed to what the prosecutor is given to prosecute you. That's the angle I want to
I'm gonna let you start, and then I'm going to share with you what my personal experience is. My factual experience is, and what the law is pertaining to that. And again, when you're dealing with the federal system, we can't, it's not, or the system period. We're not, as you said, we need to teach them some law. We need to teach them some things. Our children some things, as Mr. Harold is saying, and stuff like that there. But I'm just going to share my experience with the court system with you after you give your spiel.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, like I just said, the fact that public defenders are paid for by the city or state you're in, or the federal government. Either way, they're paid for by tax dollars, as is the prosecutor. But there's a big difference in what they're given in the public defender's office to represent each defendant, as opposed to the prosecutor who represents the government. So we talk about the scales of justice and equality, but they can't be even or equal if one party has a blank check to work with, and the other party has, look, don't let your budget go over 1,500, because a lot of defendants would be better equipped to defend themselves if they had that blank check. So that's something that I've thought about, a lot. It's the fact that the same person is writing both of their checks, but they get different. Like my prosecutor, she had a bodyguard that followed her around everywhere she went. She works in Washington now. She's up there with you, James. Her name was Gretchen Shepard. Big prosecutor. She was out. My case was out of Charlotte. So she was. you're gonna hear different stories about prosecutors, but anyway, my public defender, I felt like he worked for her. You know what I'm saying? Not just I felt like he worked for her. Like, honestly, and I said this to the judge. Like you, James, I went to trial. When you go to trial, you find out a lot more. The process is a lot longer. So at the beginning of my trial, my public defender told me he had actually defeated the prosecutor twice in trial, which I found out to be a lie later. I think he did that just to get me to spin the wheels and go to trial. So once we started going to trial, then he started acting terrified. But it's like I don't want to talk about my opinion about about prosecutors. I just want to talk about the fact that, you know, and this is a fact, that they are paid by the government, state, or locale that they're located in through tax dollars. So, and as is the prosecutor, they have the same, they get their paycheck come from the same source. So if we talk about conflict of interest, so, you know, how can they properly represent you when they're fighting or going against someone that they, you know, they frequent the same restaurants, they go out, they know each other on their own first name basis. Like, and I was, you know, I was taken back by how chummy my attorney was with the prosecutor. That didn't feel right. I was like, they buddy, you know, like it just, so the whole system, you know, how, you know, my take on it was that it was just, I didn't have a chance. I didn't feel like I had a chance because my lawyer and my lawyer ended up filing the Alfred's plea.
Alfred plea. It's called an Alfred plea.
Is that
Alfred
the right
versus North Carolina.
Is that the right plea? Yeah. So
Alfred
my attorney did that because I didn't want to listen to what he had to say. At some point, I got to the point where I didn't trust my court-appointed attorney at all. So I started telling him what I wanted him to do, James, because I was learning through the trial process. I was studying. I was going to the law library, and I'm like, hold up, nah, do this. And he just got to the point where he got fed up with it, you know, and he did one of those Allen or Alfred plea or something.
It's Alfred versus North Carolina. It is a plea where if you're saying you're innocent, it's a plea where they allow you to plead without admitting your guilt. But then the court would turn around and make a finding of whether he feels you're guilty based on the factual findings. So
okay,
it is still,
that's not the one. It's the other one where the attorney's saying that they can't represent you. I think it's an Allen's plea.
where they're saying that they can't represent you because
he kind of like removed himself. He filed some other type of form.
Okay, let me share this with you first before I get into that, because I have kind of like a lengthy response. But before I get into that, Miss Freeze has a comment that she wants to give. Go ahead, Miss Freeze, unmute yourself and share what your comment with us, please.
This is a great panel tonight. I'm loving every minute of it. What I want to say is I've been researching a case. I'm not going to go into any details, obviously, but the public defender that this person was given was bipolar. And she suffered from great bouts of disillusionment and illusions of grandeur. So the first time he met with her, she said, you know, I'm going to get you out of here. I know you're innocent. This is going to happen. But she was inept. She was incapable of handling the case at all. So now he has been incarcerated and is still incarcerated in a prison for 18 years.
Mm.
The public defender was completely inept.
Mm.
This is a prevalent issue. I think they need to be held accountable. They need to be not able to defend anyone if they're having issues such as this. That's basically all I wanted to say. Just say, it's not always right. And I'm not saying every public defender is like that, because I don't like to make any kind of blanket statements about any certain group or anything. But I know it's happening. I know it's prevalent, and it needs to end. That's basically all I needed to say.
Right.
I want to start off by saying this. I'm going to go here. Anybody else want to say anything before I go, or you want me to go first and whatnot? Because what I'm going to share is going to be kind of interesting. Okay, now first thing I want to say, when nobody's not ready yet, I want to say is that I had a different experience with public defenders. I had 3 private attorneys prior to getting some public defenders. I have personal friends that are public defenders out of the public defender's office in Greenbelt, Maryland. And I have spoken went to the public defender's office and spoken, did just speaking with the public defenders, as well as judges in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, that being said, I don't view, because of my personal experience, I do not view public defenders in the light that everybody, some other people may view public defenders. All public defenders are not bad, and I'm sure we agree on that there. But we do have some, we do have some bad public defenders. I'm going to tell you this. The public defenders I had helped me. I had as I said, 3 private attorneys that got me 1,380 months, which is equivalent to 115 years in federal prison. I was supposed to die in prison. These are private attorneys that got me this, who are expected to know more about the law than a public defender, or who are expected to have more resources than a public defender, who are expected to be somewhat smarter or craftier than a public defender. However, that didn't work for me. 3 attorneys later, 4 years in, I got 2 public defenders, Brian Cornbrath, and his name was Hunt Chirac. God bless the dead, Mr. Chirac has passed away. But I want to say the dumb gentleman helped me get go from 115 years to 25 years. Some would say 25 years is a long time, but we would have to agree that 115 years is even longer. That being said, let me move on. To me, I have personal friends that are public defenders, so I don't, and I know for a fact that they fight for their clients. I know for a fact that they do what they can for their clients. Within the law, we have had discussions about different laws. They have, and again, speaking to the public defender's office, they was questioning and picking my brain as far as the system and different laws and how defenders view things and stuff like that. What people need to understand is the public defender's office is bombarded with cases. Their budget is, like you're saying, Mr. Park, their budget is provided by the government. So, they have to do what they have to do within the budget. They don't control how many defendants they get. They don't control how much money they get per budget. So what they have to do is work with what they have. Am I making excuses for them? No. What we need to do.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I'm not. No, I'm
yes,
not.
you are.
Okay, and that's your opinion. That's your opinion. I'm
Yes,
saying this here. What we need to do is be accountable for us. My public defenders assisted me in getting that time off. I went in the law library every day myself and studied law. I did not depend on nobody to do anything for me. No, when we go and we deal with everyday life circumstances, we don't just put our lives in nobody's hand. I went in the law library. I played basketball. I played baseball. I played all sports. That did not happen for over a year or something when I first went to prison. Now, let me address something that you said. Before I addressed it, I want to tell you this here. I want to show you this here and then tell you this here. This is the book that I wrote. It's called Getting Arrested: The Insider's Guide to the Federal Legal System. It's going to be published in Amazon and all different outlets in the near future. One of the things I want to touch on is you were saying that the public defender, the government has an unwritten check or a blank check to prosecute you. What we don't know is the public defender's office or any other attorney has the same benefits that the government has. Now, I'm going to read this to you. This is a section of my book. Under Criminal Justice Act 18 U.S.C. 3006A, Section E(I), an indigent defendant can request that the court provide him access to expert services that are necessary for adequate representation. It goes on to say that upon request, you have to ask for counsel for a person who is financially unable to obtain investigative expert, which is a private investigator, or other services necessary for adequate representation may request them in an ex parte application. I exercised everything that I could. You get your transcripts under this act. You get your lawyer up under this act. You get your investigator up under this act. If you have tapes or things that need to be analyzed, you get the money up under this act. So the same thing the government has, you have an opportunity to. Now, again, I'm not saying all public defenders are great, but what I'm saying is you have some that know more law than the other ones do. I've come to learn that it's about the individual and what they know. just because you're a private attorney don't make you a good attorney. It's what you know. So I'm gonna stop here, Mr. Carlos, and I'm gonna let you go ahead on and say what you have to say.
All right, because I got something, right?
Absolutely.
So James, there's the rule and there's the exception to the rule. What you're not realizing is that your situation is an exception to the rule. The rule is, on average, and you will find the majority of people are talking about public defenders in their office not representing them adequately. So the fact that you have such a good relationship with public defenders is cool. That's good, but that's not the rule. That's not what you're gonna find. If you go and you search cases in the United States dealing with public defenders, it's normally you're gonna get you're gonna get what I got was what you filed 2255 ineffective assistance of counsel, and that's normally because you have a public defender. So it's cool that you had it. A lawyer, your attorneys didn't do you right, and your public defender did. It's the opposite for me. I got sentenced. I had a public defender. My family finally got enough money to pay for my lawyer 17 years later. I got out because I had a paid attorney. So the judges take what a paid attorney has to say versus a public defender differently. They look at them differently. My public defender was treated like a schoolboy by the prosecution attorney and the judge. They treated him like he was a buffoon. Like it was just embarrassing. He didn't have any confidence, and they didn't have any confidence in him. So you were fortunate enough to have.
Was that because he didn't know, or was it because? See, we assume because he's a lawyer and he's passed the bar that he knows the law.
I'm pretty sure he didn't know. That's why he wasn't confident.
Okay.
When you
that's why they treated him that way.
So one of the things if you go into a courtroom, you can tell a paid attorney by the way they enter the room. They're confident. They know they're good. They get paid to do what they're doing. A court-appointed attorney comes in there stumbling, and they don't have the confidence. They don't present themselves with the same confidence that a paid attorney does, or that a prosecutor. When a prosecutor walks in, it's like they own the room, and we all know the energy transfers. So the judge is going to pick up on the energy from the attorneys as well. And that's neither here nor there. My whole point is that we are and the thing you just said that you read from your book about court-appointed attorneys having the ability to hire private attorneys.
Not only court-appointed. Hold on. There's not only a rule for court-appointed attorneys. I'm going to share this with you. If you pay your money to an attorney and you run out of money, you are still afforded or have the right to those same services. So if I paid a lawyer $50,000 and I'm broke and I need a private investigator, that rule says that I can petition the court and get that same private investigator, even though I have a paid attorney.
That rule says it, but are they enforcing it? So there are a lot.
I'm a living testament of it. I'm free talking to you on the Zoom.
We have a private investigator on here right now.
Absolutely.
Is it Connie?
Miss Connie, yes.
Miss Connie, how many court-appointed attorneys are paying for your services versus paid attorneys? I just want to get your opinion on this.
Well, no, the private attorneys are the ones that are going to pay for the services.
All right. So have you had a court-appointed attorney pay you?
No, how the court-appointed attorneys work, you either work as an investigator for the public defender's office, or if it's alternative defense counsel, then you contract with the state, and the state actually pays you for your services. The attorneys themselves don't pay for you.
Okay.
And I think the problem is they're afforded that right, but nobody, even the court-appointed attorneys or defense attorneys, nobody shares that information with them, allowing them to know they have that right to request through the courts.
Okay.
You know, that's the problem, is they don't inform their clients of this. They don't inform them because they don't want to, they don't want to pay for it, you know?
All right. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I won't trip and maybe I missed out on something, but you know,
You did.
from
You did,
my
bro. You did. And I'm
from
gonna tell
my
you why.
experiences, James, like I can't even believe that you are this adamant about your position on this, that court appointed. I mean, I've never heard it. I've never heard that. You know, I've never heard that.
I
I've
understand
never
that.
heard anybody speak out as adamantly for public attorneys. I've never seen this. This is shocking to me that you support them in this way, because I've never, like, they have a TV show about a guy who was in prison representing himself because his court-appointed attorney sold him up the river. I forgot what it's called. He was innocent. He did something. They got a TV show out right now, produced by I think 50 Cent put it out. I mean, like it's too commonplace. Everybody knows this about court-appointed attorneys.
Okay. I'm gonna say this. I first I want to start off by saying this. If you out of the public defender's office, the federal public defenders, as Ms. Connie said, have their own investigators already within their office. That's a part of their budget. If you have a court-appointed private attorney, then 9 out of 10 he don't have a private investigator, so he can petition for those funds. What I'm telling you is this here. It's a tragic that you went through the way you went through. But one thing I promote in my book that you've seen right there is that you have to help your legal representation. You can't put it in their hand, go on the basketball court and play basketball, and then want an individual who you know to be overbooked or overworked or to fight for your life like he doesn't fight for nobody else's life. You know, you can't do that. Again, I feel that way because I understand there is no absolute. It's not an absolute statement when it comes to public defenders. All of them are not bad. You know, some of them are good. You know, so you just get the luck of the draw. Just like, again, I hired 3 attorneys and paid a lot of money from those attorneys, but those attorneys didn't help me. But they were recommended to me by several people in the jail because they helped them. You see what I'm saying? So now I can say they're bad attorneys based on my experience. And then somebody else can say, no, he's a great attorney based on his experience. You know, so it's all about, to me, what I've learned, it's all about how you present, how you make him work for you. You see, you know, I can't, you know, I didn't sleep. And you know, I took courses, I did paralegal courses, I stayed in the law library, you know, all the time, because I was not dependent, I was not willing to allow you to put my life in your hands and just depend on you. There's no game, there's nothing that we get involved with in life that we don't go investigate the rules of it. This should apply to the court system as well. We are incarcerated, we are in jail with nothing else to do. Why not go down to the law library and learn what you are involved in? Once you do that, it may make your plight a little bit more better for you. As Ms. Connie said, they don't tell you, but they also say ignorance of the law is no excuse. You know, so that being the case, I don't expect them to tell me. I went in there and did what I had to do. And this is what I encourage people to do within my book. Go learn for yourself. I'm giving you things that I learned firsthand in this book. I'm giving you the rules. I'm giving you sample motions. I'm giving you directions. I even have a copy of everything in there. So you don't even have to go to the law library to deal with this. They're getting the government statements, the reports of a PSI, and a section about private attorneys oppose public defenders, and other alternatives you can take to get good representation. Because in all actuality, you may have faith in that private attorney. I'd rather have his paralegal, because his paralegal is the one that does the research and know your case more than that lawyer does. Because they're the one who does the research, the investigator work with everybody, and then it's presented to the lawyer for the lawyer to come argue. You know, so I have more faith in paralegals than I would a lawyer. You know, before I go on, I got 3 people that would like to comment to this, so we're gonna work our way through that. We're gonna start with Mr. Jones, then we have a Mr. Kedrick, and then we have Ms. Connie. We're gonna reverse it, or we're gonna go to Ms. Connie first. Please unmute yourself, Ms. Connie.
I just wanted to say one thing, and I agree with you, Mr. Jones, on the after the fact, doing your research and preparing yourself. But the thing I think that gets a lot of people in the position that they are is, you know, they get arrested, they go to court, they may not have a lot of education and knowledge on it, but they put their faith in the fact that the system does, their defense attorneys, and that they're going to do everything that they can do to defend you. So you don't really think about it until it's done or you've experienced it, and then you go and you do your research and you try to figure out, okay, and then you see it, and at that point it's that much harder. So getting the information out to people and educating them before they ever get in that position to know, yes, I can request this. Yes, I need to tell my attorney what he needs to do, and he needs to defend me, because we put too much faith in the system that they're doing the right thing when a lot of times they're not. And after the fact, for a lot of people, sometimes it's too late, and the fight is just years and years and years until you finally find that right person that knows what is going on to, you know, help you. So that's what I see in a lot of my stuff, until people actually sit down and look through everything and they see, why didn't my attorney do this? Why didn't they hire an investigator? Why didn't they investigate it more? You know, because all of this could have come to light before I got sentenced to life in prison or 100 and some years, you know, instead of me being stuck. I think that's the problem that we run into, is especially people that have never been involved in the system, and you know, they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or they get accused of something. They hope and they have faith that the system is doing what it's supposed to do, and 9 times out of 10, that's not what's happening.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Connie.
Yes.
You're mentioning that individuals, when they go to looking at it and they see the errors and everything, that they can say, why did my attorney do this and why did my attorney do that? At what stage in the proceedings do they start doing that?
You know, a lot of my clients, they don't even start looking into it or start seeing the big picture until after they're sentenced. You know, they're convicted, they're sentenced, and they're just dumbfounded of how everything went. And especially the ones knowing they're innocent go in there and they're just like, absolutely, there should be they should be defending me and proving my innocence, when it doesn't go that way, you know. And so they don't really even notice or even think about it until, you know, they're going through the battle of trying to, at that point, prove they're innocent, you know. And I had lunch with a lady today that has been she was a police officer all her life, and her brother went through a situation, and she was sitting during the trial. She was just dumbfounded by the things they were doing, and she's like, how can this be happening? They're supposed to be presenting things, and I just don't, I don't understand it. And then she's experienced the other side of what's going on, when all her life she's had faith in the system's working the way it's supposed to, and people that are innocent don't go to prison, people that are guilty do, and they have a fair chance to defend themselves. So, you know, it's a lot of times it's after the fact that, you know, that they start seeing these things. And I know that was with me. You know, I was on one side of criminal justice. I worked in a prison setting for many, many years. And it wasn't until I started listening and hearing people's stories and then looking into the actual cases. And I'm like, how did this happen? How did they send this guy to prison for life with no evidence? You know? And then you start digging deeper and you see it starts unfolding itself. And I think that's the problem is by the time they start understanding and seeing what their rights were and should have been, it's too late, you know, as far as, and then it's an uphill battle.
You know, I agree with you. And I'm hard on this because this is not, when you're in court, your life is not a game. So you should immediately get into there. And I understand I may, like Mr. Park said, I may have been the exception. But one thing that I did was when I got into prison, when I got arrested, not even prison, when I got arrested and they brought me a 35 count indictment and told me that I was facing forever in prison, I think that was a wake up call for me to say, hold on, I need to figure this out, you know, at that point and go from there. I played into what the average person do. They say, okay, well, if you ask around, who's the best attorney around? People give you a name, I hire him. He doesn't do the things that I need him to do. You know, the system is again, Mr. Parks, love this conversation, love this topic, and it's going to have to go into a second part because there's more to it that I would like to share. But I'm going to be brief for time things, but I want to say that, you know, these attorneys, just because you hire them don't mean that they're going to represent you. You know, they're going to help you. One of the people on the panel stated, it says that they feel a lot has to do with motivation, the criminal attorney's motivation. Are they motivated to help you as a person, or are they not motivated to help you as a person? And I think that's what it boils down to. You know, my attorneys, the public defenders I had, after they sat down with me and I showed them all the stuff that I had accumulated over the years, because I got them like 3 years into my case, they said it appeared that I had been crucified like Jesus. Everybody else, you know, I got everybody else time. And that motivated them to want to help. You know, so now I understand that that every attorney is not the same. You know, so that's why I'm not willing to put an absolute blanket across public defenders saying all of them are bad. I'm not willing to say that all the private attorneys are bad. You know, all I can just say is, you know, and my advice to a person is, you know, the more you know, the less he can mess over you. So the day that you walk into that jail, if you know you're not going nowhere, your second day you should be in that library, or the first day you're in it should be asking where's that law library at to find out more. I got all type of services from the government. You know, actually, I was going to hire a fourth attorney, but he advised me to get the public defenders so I can get transcripts, the investigator, and all of that stuff free. And then when I got the public defenders, they ended up helping me out. You know, so I didn't need that attorney. You know, so I'm not taking away from what you're saying. I'm just saying I had a different experience. I have Mr. Kedrick that wants to speak, and then I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Fox. You have to mute yourself. Unmute yourself. There you go, sir. How you doing?
I'm fine. Good afternoon, y'all. How y'all doing? I just want to share this experience that right now I do have a case open, and I am having problems with my public offender. I think this is going to be my third one. I had one for a while, and he wasn't helping me on the case, so they took him off the case. I have another one right now, and I've been talking to this young lady, and she's telling me that her caseload is too long, and she's not going to be able to help me with my case because we're not really seeing eye to eye. I have a lot of challenges, like mental health challenges, and she's saying it's too much, and I know too much, and it's going to be too much for her to do at this time because of the corona case. So they post, as a long story short, they are trying to get me another attorney, and they're probably going to hire me a private attorney. I mean, a state of court attorney. I'm not sure yet. Supposed to call her back Tuesday, but I am having some difficult times with the public defender's office. And another thing, I'm on house arrest because of the coronavirus. So I just want to state that I, at this point in time, it doesn't look like this in my favor. And for the last couple of times that I have had cases, I have had a private attorney, but my private attorney passed away. He had a heart attack. So now I am dealing with the public defender's office. And so I don't know. Like I said, when I talked to her last week, she was telling me that it's too much on her caseload. And she understand what I'm saying. She understand what the state is offering me. They haven't made up a plea. I've been fighting this case since last year, January, and they still haven't came to a plea yet. They had a plea, they took the plea away, and she's telling me the same thing the other attorney was telling me, that they don't have a plea for me right now. And I'm telling her, okay, well, let's go on. Let's do a mitigated package there. You know, I don't know. I'm on house arrest. I'm just sitting here. And she was saying, you know, I'm asking for too much, and she's going to talk to her supervisor and give me another attorney or whatnot. So I don't know. Because, you know, it's sad that we don't have any public defenders on this panel at this time, but they can explain it to me. Because when I go in there, I need them to explain it to me as if I'm on an elementary level. You know, we don't use no big words. Make it so I understand what you're saying. That's what I be telling them. Don't say that. Say it like you're talking to a third grade. So
You
they
know,
tell me.
let me say this to you. And this is why I was saying I wanted to go into it next week. The more you know and the more you bring to your attorney, the more offended they get, unless you have a unique attorney. The more offended they get. Then they go, when you're bringing stuff to them and you're making them work and you're making them go against whatever they feel like they wanted to, whatever road they wanted to travel, they go to labeling you as a difficult client. Mr. Jones, you need to be careful because they're on the process of labeling you as a difficult client. After I got rid of my third attorney, the judge told me that she was going to appoint these attorneys to me, the public defender's office. And if I did not like them or I could not get along with them, because every other attorney, no one's going to say, hey, I'm the problem. You know, so every other attorney was saying, Mr. Jones is the problem. So what ended up happening was she told me, if you can't get along with these attorneys, you're going to represent yourself. You know, I laughed because she couldn't make me do it, but you know that threat. You know, this is part of the system to make you think that you can't do what needs to be done. But I'm telling you, you have to be careful when you are hiring and getting rid of these attorneys because they'll label you as a difficult client, and you can't be pleased. Now, with that being said, I want to go ahead on to Mr. Park. Mr. Park, do you have anything else you would like to say?
Nah, I man, I love the discussion tonight. So the difficult part is because you know too much. Like by the time they got to you, James, and you had already been sentenced, but while you were in, you grew knowledge-wise. I'm sure that attorneys were probably intimidated by you. So when you got with these court-appointed attorneys, they were like, this dude is sharp. He knows his case. They couldn't just tell you anything. Now, when you first come into the system, like when I first came in, I didn't know anything. So I kind of like felt like my attorney was telling me stuff that just didn't sound right, common sense stuff. But everybody doesn't have common sense. So when they come into a situation with a person who's savvy like yourself, they're gonna be like, oh, we can't just tell him anything. We got to actually work with this guy.
Let me share with you.
Yeah.
When I came in, I took a paralegal course in the county jail. I took a correspondence paralegal course inside of the county jail. I did that because I needed to know the rules of engagement for this fight that I was in.
Yeah.
So I took the paralegal course and I understood the rules, which gave me more insight. Also, when I was going to the law library, in every law library, you have a law clerk. Normally, that's a person who's been in for a long time or who's going to be in for a long time, and he has knowledge of the law because he knows his way around the law library. So this individual, when I'm sharing with him the information I want to give him, he's sharing with me information that I need. He's giving me cases. So now when I go to court, I'm saying things to the judge that's saying that they're telling the judge, this guy here who's standing beside me is not for me, and this is why. And I'm able to quote case law. I'm educating myself, and I have someone that's trying to educate me. By the time I got sentenced and got to the public defenders, I still had a lot to learn. I will be the first to say that. But you know what? Them guys, they felt, like I said, that I was crucified, so they wanted to help me. And they seen I was willing to help myself. So what they did was they made me learn the law the correct way. They said, okay, don't talk to us and tell us no more about what you're saying. Bring me a case that support what you're saying. So I said, no problem. I go to the library and I'm working.
So
then I bring some case. I'm in the force. Right, I'm shepherdizing and going through the digest and everything, and I'm in the Fourth Circuit,
Me
as you
too.
know, with Virginia, Maryland, and stuff. The Fourth Circuit,
Yeah.
which is one of the toughest circuits in all the circuits. But I was in the Fourth Circuit. But when I'm out, because I didn't know a lot, I'm finding cases that support my position out of the Ninth Circuit, out of the Sixth Circuit, and out of the Fifth Circuit. So I can't wait till they come back to the jail so I can show them, hey, this is what I'm saying and this is what I mean. So I give them the cases and they look at me, throw it on the table. They say, this is nothing. You need to find something
in your circuit.
out of the Fourth Circuit. So then I got to go back into there and bring it out of the Fourth Circuit. I had two attorneys, two public defenders. They were not the same office, but one was the head public defender, the other one was like an assistant, and they were working together. I used to work so hard that this guy took a liking to me so much. He used to call me to the jail, call the jail and tell me to call him. And he'll tell me, hey, go look up this case right here and give me the site to go look up and then tell me that you ain't talked to me. And the next time we come to jail, you bring this case. And the secretaries and everybody was doing this, because they, people believed in me, but it's because I was trying to help myself. That's what I feel, but I think that still, even if you don't know, you have to start immediately. You can't wait to the end or wait till, you feel like that you're in trouble. Start immediately. Then you can learn some of these things. Again, the book I have is going to be out. It explains everything for everybody. I'm going to make it available for everybody, and it's cheap. Those type of books like Busted by the Feds and all those type of books are $80, $100 or more. This book here be $20, $19.95, because I'm not trying to break nobody's pockets and I want them to have this information. It don't only deal with the system, it deals with BOP and it also deals with resources afforded once you get out of prison. So that being the case, to sum this up, I feel that yes, the attorneys, a lot of, like Mr. Jones said, Mr. Keswick, I don't know where he went to, he's there. As he said, his attorney telling him straight up, I don't have time to do what you need me to do. Your case is too complex, so I'm going to move on. She's telling him that, because he's bringing things to them. I know Mr. Jones personally. I have made phone calls to his attorneys for him and all of that. And again, I seen them get frustrated. They get upset because someone that knows is talking to them. You can't just shoot me a line of crap. I had one attorney tell me, hey, I thought you was the other Mr. Jones. How did you get on the phone? And I have to, because I'm speaking with some sense, or speaking with more legal background. Let me say that way. I'm not going to say sense because that brother there's sharp too. I know he's my brother, but with more legal background, and they don't like that, So that being said, we have to educate ourselves, regardless of what lawyer we have, because they're going to what I want to say, and I'm gonna let somebody else talk, or we can do whatever. Is all decisions are put on your shoulders, whether you plead guilty, whether you go to trial, whether you testify. Those are put on your shoulders. You have to make these decisions. But if you don't have enough information, adequate information to make decisions, then what?
Is it
when that happens, we go to blaming the attorneys.
Nah. Was that a question? Did you want to answer for that?
Yes, I would like for you to answer that.
No. I'm not blaming attorneys. My whole thing was the money. The money. You can't dispute that. The prosecutor's office gets more money than the court appointed attorney's office. That was my point. That's why the court appointed attorneys are overloaded with cases, because they thrust all these cases at them. They don't have time to deal with one case. They have to deal with like huge caseloads, especially if you're in New York. I think the public defender's office, they get like 100 cases a piece. So like you're not gonna give you don't have the time. You're stretched too thin to give a person adequate representation. So I'm just talking about the money that they give towards the prosecutor's office and the public defender's office. I'm not saying the attorneys are not, they could be worth their salt, but they can't do anything if they got so many cases. So it's just the money that's being spent towards your prosecution versus the money being spent towards your defense. It's not equal. It's not even.
Okay, let me ask you a few questions, right? A public defender gets paid by salary, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
How does the prosecutor get paid?
By salary.
Um, um, so they're not getting paid per case.
No.
You have so many people in the public defender's office with a budget,
Okay.
and you have the U.S. Attorney's office with a budget.
Okay.
So I'm not understanding when you're saying
The budget, James, is what the budget is different for prosecuting the case as opposed to defending the case. You can't argue that. There's no argument for that. Listen, a prosecutor's attorney has at their disposal the police department, so they can subpoena. One thing that the prosecutor has is the right to subpoena. You know what I'm saying? They can subpoena the whole police department, have every officer come in there as an expert witness. They can subpoena doctors. They have money. They can do what they want. If they want you convicted, they will spend that money to convict you. They're not going to spend that same money to defend you.
Okay.
You can say it. I don't care how many times. I don't care where you wrote it down at. They're not giving defensive court-appointed attorneys the money that they're giving prosecutors. That's my point. They are not giving them that money.
We're going to make this a part 2 for next week, right?
All right.
But I want to share this with you before we get off this Zoom.
I wish you could get some attorneys on here, especially
I'm gonna reach out to
public defenders.
I'm gonna reach out to
I
him.
don't know
I'm gonna reach out to him.
Yeah, I don't know any.
I'm going to say this to you though. It's all about what you know and what you know that is afforded to you. Because if you can't locate a witness and you know it's out there, and the prosecutor know the witness out there, do you know that you can have the U.S. And let's say we're dealing with a fair case? Do you know the United States District Attorney can be ordered to help you locate that witness? It's a whole lot that we don't know.
Again, you still saying things that don't happen, James.
It don't happen because you don't know.
We just had a investigator on here, and she said she has never been paid by a public defender.
No, you don't. You know why? I agree with her. You know why? Because the public defender's office have their own investigators. Now, if you get a court like Mr. Jones is saying, they're going to hire him a private attorney, and the court is going to pay for it. Once they do that, he can ask for a private investigator because that private investigator service has to be independent of not independent of, but they're independent. When you have a private investigator that's a part of the public defender's office, he's getting paid salary, or she's getting paid salary out of that budget of that office. So no, when you have a public defender, no, she don't get paid for that. But if I have an attorney that's appointed to me, a private attorney that's appointed to me via the court, then I can ask the court to get a private investigator, because I can't expect, nor do they expect that attorney to go in his pocket and pay for a private investigator for me.
Can you have 30 witnesses brought back from the federal system flown from California at Long Park and from Beaumont? Can you have 30 defendants flown back to help your defense?
Anytime you want to see my paperwork, you can do that. And yes, I've done that. And I had guys coming from Lewisburg Penitentiary. I had guys coming from at the time there was at Long Park. I had co-defendants and stuff that came back and done that for me.
They came back in your defense.
Right, absolutely. If I need a witness, they have to afford me the same opportunity they afford the government. And if I don't have the funds.
Again, James, you are an exception to the rule. I've never heard of that. It never. When I was in, they brought 15 witnesses back from the federal prison to testify against me in my trial. They didn't bring anybody back to testify in my favor. And I'm pretty sure it hasn't happened in any other case other than yours.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you requested it?
Again, I'm gonna say I'm pretty sure it hasn't ever happened in any other cases other than yours.
I understand that. I understand why you feel the way you feel, because you don't know. Have you requested it?
I don't have anybody in prison that I wanted to testify on my behalf. I'm just saying that if I wanted to, my court-appointed attorney wasn't going to be able to bring them back.
Why wasn't
he? Would probably laughed at me.
Okay, so now if they can testify, so let me ask you a question, and I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna go ahead and let you say what I got to say, and then we're gonna get off of that. We're gonna run a part 2 of this because we kind of at 10 o'clock. We started at 8 o'clock. We're at 10 o'clock. But I want to say this to you. I had several people that testified against me about selling drugs in a certain area. You had other people that were convicted drug dealers that were in that area at that time. And they were dealing with the people who were testifying against me. We both know that the government gives people, people jump on cases in order to get the 5K1 and the Rule 35. We both know that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll discuss that later on next week.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I had people say they were dealing with me that at the time that I knew they were dealing with somebody else who was convicted. And those people were saying, hey, call me back and I'll testify on your behalf and let them know about those people. Anytime you would like to read any of my paperwork, any documentation, I have all of that. That's what happened. I called people back from jails. I called people back from prisons and came back. And then, of course, I had to give guys that was in Lewisburg and Longpont, the USPs, letters saying that they were, or my attorney had to give them something saying they came back for the defense, because that was a killing offense to come from out of those prisons to testify in the courtroom. So they had to take something back to show what they came to court for, but I'm telling you that does happen. It all boils down to what you know, and when that happens, when you know more than the average person, they'll get you out of the way. So what I mean by get you out of the way, they'll give you something to quiet you up and let you go about your business so you don't wake nobody else up. That's what they do. And that's what they done with me, because they came to me after going to trial, after losing on 29 counts, and gave me what I call a post-trial, what they classify as the post-trial agreement. Take these, we'll drop 27 of the 29 counts if you agree to go to sentencing on the 2 and waive all of your appeals so you can never say anything again. So they quieted me. And I, of course, after having 100 and some years of facing that 1,380 months, of course I'm going to take that. And that's what happened. But again, the more that you know, the better off you are. Not what your lawyer know. The more that you know, the better off you are. That's what I want to tell you. With that being said, I appreciate everybody coming tonight. We're going to go ahead and close this up tonight. We're going to have a part 2 of this next Sunday. And I'm going to try to reach out to some public defenders and have them on the show. I don't know. I'm going to reach out to public defenders and we're going to try to have them on the show. So, one thing about this show that I love about it, it's all about enlightenment. And sometimes it's going to challenge people's beliefs or experiences that they've been through. And, it's about learning new things. We have to be willing to accept new things, see new things, and go from there. If any time, and I tell this to everybody, that you would like to see anything I tell you, get in contact with me and I'll send it to you. I don't go off of my cuff, or I don't give my opinion. Like Mr. Parks, I've learned to deal with facts. So anytime anybody want to call me on the fact that I'm saying, by all means do so. But I will do that. I'm glad everybody have a good night. And we're gonna continue this on next week. I appreciate you coming on, Mr. Parks.
Same topic.
Same topic. Part
right.
2 of this topic. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you bringing this beautiful topics that you brought. I enjoyed tonight and whatnot. I look forward to next week.
All right. Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody.